Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard and Cat Award Show.
Yeah, you did the trumpets this time. Good job.
Yeah.
Usually I do them.
It's me, Sean.
And me, Tennille.
And we're here at the end of 1978.
Mm-hmm. What a good year.
Yeah.
In case you've missed any movies that came out this year, you should go back into the playlist and check out our reviews of them because this was a solid set of movies.
Yeah, except for like 1.5.
Yeah.
Or 2. 3.
But that's still really good.
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of really good movies.
Big, huge improvement. Just wonderful. Yes. Anyway, welcome everyone to the award show. This is where Sean and I take a look at all the movies that we've watched in this time frame. This will be the time frame of 1978. And ranking them best to worst and talking about other things and all that jazz.
Yeah, we've done it a number of times at this point. You probably know what's up. Let's start with listing off the movies that we'll actually be talking about, because sometimes we go back in time and we watch other movies, and then those obviously won't be in the award shows for those particular periods of time. So what are we talking about for this set?
So, first we watched Goldwing 1, 2, 3, Conjui and Pachui, Krabat, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, Ringing Bell, Thumbelina, Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, the movie, The Water Babies, Farewell to Space Battleship Yamato, Watership Down, Metamorphosis, also known as Winds of Change, The Lord of the Rings, and Mystery of Momo, Lupin III.
What a awesome collection of movies.
And diverse, too.
For the most part.
Diverse from what we're used to usually seeing.
Okay. I guess.
This was a much more serious year for movies.
That is true.
Not a one of these movies I would classify as a comedy.
A straight comedy over anything else.
Which is
shocking. Yeah, yes, that is fair. No comedies. In fact, we only classified these movies into 3 major categories this time as compared to the usual 4. So that tells you that everybody was doing the same thing. But before we get into all of those categories, let's start with some statistics.
Oh, yes, your lovely statistics.
I love my stats. So we had 12 movies that we talked about this year.
Okay.
Let's start with the breakdown of traditional versus stop motion versus live action versus 3D. Well, we had 0 3D movies because those don't exist yet.
What?
Computer animation isn't a thing yet.
No.
So we have traditional, which is the vast majority. Live action is just kind of an unfortunate byproduct. And stop motion, which is fun to see, but usually we don't have a lot of them.
Don't have a lot of them, and it's still in its very, rudimentary form.
I mean, they're always fascinating to see.
Yeah.
So, how many stop motion films do you think we had this year?
Well, I know there was Conjui and Pachui. And for the record, I'm not looking at my list while I'm doing this, because Sean likes to see how much I can remember off the top of my head. Then Krabat was a cutout papercraft film.
I forgot Papercraft is one of our...
So I include that as stop motion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in the future going, we probably should just combine those.
Yeah. Was it those 2?
Yep, that's it.
That's it.
I had somehow forgotten about Krabat.
And you were looking at the list.
Yeah.
You silly bean.
Okay. And then, how many live action films did we have?
I think just Water Babies?
Yeah, and that was 50% live action.
Ugh. We only just barely counted it.
Movie. And that leaves 9.5 other movies that were traditionally animated.
Yeah. And obviously the other half being the other half of the Water Babies.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let's break it down by country. What was which country gave us the most films this year?
Oh, see, now this is where it gets hard because a lot of the European films are like co-produced in like multiple countries and sometimes also the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, well, we didn't have any Disney films, and were there really? Was it just Lord of the Rings that was from the US?
No.
No, there was more than that?
Yes.
Okay. I want to say...
I will say that the US was not the major producer on any other films.
Okay. I know we've got at least 3 Japanese films. Space Battleship Yamato, Ringing Bell, and... Shoot, the other one just left my head.
Don't look at the list. That's cheating.
It's so hard. It's so hard. Okay, so and Lupin the Third.
Uh-huh.
And Metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 4. It has to be Japan. Japan has to have the most, by far.
Absolutely, but it's more than 4. They did 6.
6.
They did 6 films.
Because there was also the Science Ninja Team Gatchaman.
Yes.
And...
Thumbelina.
Thumbelina toy, of course.
Uh-huh.
And then South Korea had 2 films.
Yeah, so they were the first 2 films that we watched this year.
Yeah, one right after the other.
Goldwing and Kanji and Patri.
Yeah. Then the UK, I guess, had 2, right?
Yes.
2?
1.5.
1.5.
Because they had Watership Down, of course.
Uh-huh.
But they also had the Water Babies.
Rip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the US was listed as helping with Watership Down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
But the US overall had 3.
Okay.
The Lord of the Rings,
Lord of the Rings.
Watership Down, and they also helped with Winds of Change.
Right, of course.
Because they got American musicians to do all the
right.
music.
It was a film made for like a English release.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we should not forget that Czechoslovakia gave us one film this year as well.
Krabat.
Yeah, Krabat.
Yeah.
So that's it. You know, I'm going to say that's a fairly usual split for what we've had.
Yeah.
Japan and the US being at the top, and then a few other films from other countries in there too.
And shock and surprise, I don't think that's going to change very much.
No, especially with Japan staying in the front.
Yeah.
Like, Japan is probably going to be exclusively the largest provider of animated films forever.
Forever. Like, it's not even gonna be close.
No.
Their animation industry is huge.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right. There's my stats.
Uh-huh.
That's my fun statistics. So now we get to move into some of our big, and I mean big categories.
Big as in like they've got a few movies in them.
Well, we're not there yet. We got to talk about the best animated moments.
Mm-hmm.
What movies had such spectacular animated parts,
Mhm.
specifically the animation?
Or scenes.
We're not, or scenes and stuff like that. We're not talking about art direction. We're talking
Mhm.
about specifically the animation.
Yeah.
What movies had the best bits of movement?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to start with one of yours?
Mm-hmm. Gotta call attention to Watership Down.
Of course.
It's, like, we'll get into this when we talk about art direction, but it's very naturalistic, and realistic animation is very well done. It was done on a smaller budget, but they managed to capture the real-life essence of the animals very well.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, there's some beautiful animated horror in this film as well.
High levels of horror and also gore, but like the horror, dread, terror elements are very well done
Mhm.
and very scarring.
Yeah.
So yeah, props on you guys. You made
A film that has lasted the ages on its scenes alone, but
Mhm.
also is just really good.
yes. So I of course also had Watership Down, but I also wanted to bring attention to
Mm-hmm.
The Lord of the Rings.
Uh-huh.
Because as controversial as the rotoscoping in that movie is, when it works,
It looks really
works
good.
so well.
Yeah.
Especially near the beginning of the movie when I think that's where they spent a lot more of their budget.
In time.
And it feels like by the time we got to the end of the movie, they had just thrown their budget out the window. They didn't have it anymore. But like there at the beginning, when you just have like simple scenes of just like Frodo and Gandalf talking to each other.
It's so heckin' charming.
It looks so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Like, honestly, yeah.
Like, they use the rotoscoping heavily, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
It just works so well, and it adds to the
charm
and cheese that movie embodies.
Yeah.
It's great.
It really is.
It's fantastic.
You know, it has probably some of the worst animated moments in it, too. Because of the, like,
yes.
just because, you know, not all of the rotoscoping works, especially the rotoscope filter they put over, crowd shots and stuff. It just doesn't look good. But when it works, it really, really does work, and it looks great.
Absolutely.
Another one of my moments was the animation from The Mystery of Mamo, Lupin III, specifically calling attention to some of the chase scenes and stuff that happen in that film. And like when they're doing the car chase and things start getting really crazy and like the car is literally like going off like the rail and like that's a great moment. And it's yet again one of those things that like you can only do with animation. And so it's just like taking it to the crazy extreme that it can go to. I love stuff like that.
Yes. It's a lot of fun.
Wacky hijinks.
That's about all I have, honestly.
Yeah. So then that takes us to our next category, which is similar but different. This is what did we feel had the best art direction of the movies we watched?
What was the most cohesive art style-wise? What just looked so pretty, even if it wasn't moving?
Yep.
Watership Down?
Yeah, my top pick... Well, I have a top 2 picks with an honorable mention.
Okay.
My top 2 are Watership Down and The Ringing Bell.
Okay, yes.
We've already talked about Watership Down a little bit, but yeah, the art direction just really flows together so well, and it has... Which is amazing because it's done by a smaller team, and you can tell when, like, the background artist changes and stuff like that, but it's still just...
Feels cohesive.
Still feels cohesive. And then it has different art styles that it goes into based on what's going on. Like the Black Rabbit of Death appearing and the intro sequence that is all styled after Aboriginal art. And then the sketchy style of like when they're in the burrows and it's like the desperation scene of the rabbits trying to get out of the burrows. It switches styles, and whenever it does it for good intentions, and like it just works perfectly.
Yeah.
And then I also want to call attention to Ringing Bell because this art direction's so good. It took me right back to watching a 1940s Walt Disney Silly Symphonies production. Like it emulates that style perfectly, and knew that was exactly what it wanted to do.
And it works very well for what they're going for.
And it's gorgeous.
Yes, it's great.
My honorable mention is Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's my second choice as well. It's just like, because they had such a cheese factor, the rotoscoping, it's all based on people in actual physical costumes, and they're all very cheap costumes. But like, it's so cohesive.
Yeah.
It just feels good.
It does.
You can't stop me. I like this movie for its silly cheese.
Yeah, it's so 70s. It's so 70s fantasy. What is not to like about this? Like, I continue to have this conversation every once in a while whenever we get a comment on the Lord of the Rings video that's like, I hated this movie. It ruins Lord of the Rings for me. And like, you know, if that's your opinion, that's totally fine. You're totally free to have your own opinion. But I always end up talking about it with Sean, and I'm like, man, I just can't disagree more because you know, if we lived in a world where this was the only adaptation of Lord of the Rings and we did not have the live action films to watch, yeah, sure, I'd be right with you in saying that, like, this is a poor representation of Lord of the Rings and, like, oh man, what a disappointment. But we don't live in that world. So we get to have both the wonderful live action films,
which takes it incredibly serious and like,
and they look great.
Super high budget.
Yeah. And then we also
have this
get
really
this
cheesy movie.
Yeah, this Ralph Bakshi, like, passion project that's kind of a nightmare and very 70s and corny, and it's wonderful.
I love it. It's great.
Why not both?
Yeah.
So, that is our winners for Best Animated Moments and Best Art Direction, but that is not all. We now have to break our movies that we've seen down into categories of genres.
Arbitrary choices by us. You might disagree. We kind of disagree this time. It's difficult, and we just kind of do this so that, like, we can divide the movies up a little bit better into similar-ish films and figure out which ones just work the best out of those.
Right.
Again,
so that we aren't
totally arbitrary.
So that we aren't like, you know, some award shows that, you know, put animation all in one big category and compare films like Winnie the Pooh and Coraline and go, which one of these is the better animated film? And it's like, well, I don't know.
They're not comparable.
Dingus, they're not comparable.
Because the one's a horror film and the other's a comedy. What do you want?
A light children's comedy.
Yes.
At that. So, yeah. So anyway, our categories are fantasy fairy tale. This has been a long-running category since the beginning, and it is still hanging around.
Probably won't go away for a while.
Yeah.
If ever.
Our second category is action-adventure, with the understanding that a lot of these, if not most of these, and some of the stuff that was also in fairy tale is also sci-fi.
I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like sci-fi works by itself quite yet.
No, there's a lot of these that are specifically... Okay, look. The problem is that we had to fit the water babies in somewhere, and it's not really a fantasy. I mean, it is a fantasy. It could go into fantasy.
Too late.
Anyway.
See, this is what we mean. We're divided on these particular categories this time.
The last feel category like is drama, by the way. Maybe instead of action adventure, we should have done sci-fi. Because most of these films, and another one that you have in drama, are sci-fi movies.
How about... I think this is a difference of opinion on how these should be divided, obviously. Let's just get into it. And we can talk about it more from there.
Okay.
Fantasy fairy tale. What movies do we have in this category?
Conjui Patchui, Krabat, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, Thumbelina, Metamorphosis / Winds of Change, and The Lord of the Rings.
All of those are fantasy films or fairy tales.
Yeah.
Can you argue with me there?
No, I can't, but I would argue that the Water Babies should also go in there.
But it's an adventure.
But it's a fantasy adventure. Is Wizard of Oz not a fantasy?
Yes.
And the Water Babies is basically... And what about Alice in Wonderland?
Okay, fine. Fine. You know what? Fine. The Water Babies. You're in fantasy fairy tale now. You're not winning. It doesn't matter. Change it live. Anyways, out of this group of movies, which one did you choose as the best?
I mean, I don't think there's much of a contest here.
No, it's The Lord of the Rings.
It's The Lord of the Rings.
We've already talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if there was another film, 3 or 4 other films that had made it into this category, it would have lost.
Yeah, all of them then. If all of them were in the same category.
Well, yeah. If we were ranking them all together, Lord of the Rings would not win.
Well, obviously.
But in this category...
You're just breaking it back down into what we're not doing?
Yeah.
Come on. This is the best award show we've done yet.
So professional.
Mm-hmm.
Chef kiss. Mwah.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the
Rings.
Rings.
Great. It's cheesy. It's wonderful. We've talked about it a lot.
If a film could work on concept alone, Metamorphosis would have won.
Yeah, but the
movie is so bad.
Yeah, the concept is great. The execution was poor.
I don't even think that it gets second place in this one for me.
No, I'd probably give that to Krabat.
Yeah.
Like The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's a very slow Czech film, which is their bread and butter, but it was an enjoyable movie nonetheless. I liked what it went for, and it's very fitting with their style.
I'd even say maybe Thumbelina comes next before Metamorphosis.
Ooh.
But like, that's a harder pick.
Yeah, I think those are close to tied. Kanji and Pachi is unfortunately at the bottom.
Yeah, I just really don't
Or
care
actually
for
The
that
Water
one.
Babies is at the bottom below that.
Yeah, The Water Babies is at the bottom.
It's fine. It's a bad movie.
Anyway,
All right.
so then we move on.
Action adventure.
Sci-fi.
Action adventure.
These are sci-fi movies, Sean.
Lupin the Third is not a sci-fi franchise. It is an adventure franchise.
But the movie is sci-fi.
It has sci-fi elements, yes, but it is inherently an action-adventure movie. You would not classify a James Bond movie as a science fiction movie just because he goes to space once.
I mean, if that was the whole premise of the movie, that movie would be a sci-fi movie. It would be James Bond in space, a sci-fi adventure movie.
That's neither here nor there because Lupin
It is exactly
he
here
does
or
not
there.
go to space.
No, you don't have to be in space for it to be a sci-fi. It's science fiction. So if sciencey, fiction-y things happen, it is a sci-fi.
It's still an action-adventure first and foremost.
And a sci-fi movie.
Goldwing is also an action-adventure movie.
And sci-fi.
It has, yes, that one is also sci-fi.
Uh-huh.
But it still works for the other one.
And then
Science Ninja Teen Gatchaman is science fiction.
Thank you.
But it is also action-adventure. Mostly action.
For the record, Farewell to Space Battleship Yamato is also sci-fi.
Yes, it is.
And should also be in this category.
No. It's in drama. Where it belongs. Because we don't have a sci-fi section.
We should! That's what I'm arguing for.
Okay. In the action-adventure
Sci-fi.
In the action-adventure
Sci-fi.
section. Who is the winner?
Mystery of Momo Lupin III.
What did I put? Yes, that's what I put.
Now, if...
In the sci-fi category,
Yeah.
Space Battleship Yamato wins by a landslide. Which
Yeah.
is the same category, but also with Space Battleship Yamato in there.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
I
Lupin the Third
agree.
is out. Lupin the Third is out.
Here. I concur, good sir.
Space Battleship Yamato won if this was a sci-fi section.
Okay.
Which it's not.
Which it is. So
It is a side category.
So you're saying that we take the award away from Lupin and we've just given
No.
it over to Yamato.
No.
We've just yoinked it and
Lupin the
said,
Third.
too bad, Lupin.
Lupin
Here
the
you
Third
go.
is a wonderful,
sure you'll get one
enjoyable
in the future.
action-adventure film. They get the award for action-adventure because it was a fun time. It's better than Goldwing. I almost wanted to give it to Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, but it is just like a clip show of the show, so I didn't feel quite right giving it to it.
Well, plus with Okay, we had different expectations going into Science Ninja Team Gatchaman and Lupin the Third. Lupin the Third, our expectations were, like, pretty high.
And it was a bit lower than I honestly expected.
Yeah, but it was, like, still good. And then, like, Science Ninja Team Gatchaman is like, oh, our expectations are way down here. And then it turned out to be, like, pretty good. So.
Yeah, like, pretty good, as in, like, I think it was just as good as this mostly throwaway Lupin the Third movie.
Okay.
But because it's a TV show first and then a movie second, I still want to give it to Lupin the Third.
I hope y'all are enjoying this.
I mean,
I'm
sure they are. I'm enjoying it too. All right.
So then in drama.
In sci-fi, Farewell to Space Battleship Yamato. That movie is fantastic. It knows what it wants to do. It wants to make you cry. And it does it very well, which is why it's in the drama section.
I mean, fantastic is in, like, the last third.
Yes.
Is fantastic.
The rest of it's kind of a detriment.
2/3 are, like, kind of boring, but it is a good movie.
And the villain is so nothing, we didn't even talk about them in the review.
Oh.
The leader of the enemy country, we never even mentioned him. We didn't show him. He was so inconsequential to the movie that he wasn't even in it.
Well, that's his problem.
Yeah, and he looked like a albino Ganondorf. With like
he
this
still couldn't even catch our
crazy
attention.
Unibrow that then went up the middle of his forehead and connected with his hair.
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
wow.
crazy. He had cool hair and he did nothing.
Yeah, he was nuts. Anyway, back into the delete memory bank it goes.
Yep. Drama has 3 movies.
Farewell to Space Battleship Yamato, Ringing Bell, and Watership Down.
Now, this is where all the really, really good movies went.
Yeah, it is. And this was a really hard pick.
Yeah.
My pick
Mm-hmm.
is The Ringing Bell.
Wow.
And it's the reasoning I have for picking The Ringing Bell over Watership Down, because it was between those two movies for me, is because The Ringing Bell is just so, like it's just perfect for what it is. And, like, Watership Down is too. But, like, The Ringing Bell is concise. It has consistent art direction. It packs its punch where it wants to. And, you know, Watership Down does have, like, just a few more things that I'm like, oh, well, this could be a little bit better. I wish this would have been done a little bit better. Maybe this could have been left out or put in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't have that feeling with The Ringing Bell.
Okay.
It's just as close to perfect as it could be.
That's so interesting you say that, because I actually gave this to Watership Down.
Yeah.
Barely.
Barely?
Because I think it's a better cohesive story overall. Ringing Bell is fantastic and amazing. It's very short, but it leaves me wanting
more
or something.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and obviously this is completely down to my personal subjective feelings. It's like, this movie makes me feel like I want, like, it's missing something and I need a little bit more. I don't feel like the conclusion of Ringing Bell is quite what I wanted.
Mm.
And Watership Down gives me
that closure.
Yeah. So honestly, that's why it wins out in the end. Also, Farewell to Space Battleship Yamato. I loved that movie. Mm-hmm. I think it's a fun, fantastic movie, but I don't think it's as good as either of those other 2 movies.
Yeah. So, just really highly recommend all 3 of these.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
If you get the chance to watch them. So,
all right, now we're going to the worst of the worst. What movie this year was so bad that we don't recommend anybody watch it? I mean, it's easy. It's The Water Babies.
It's The Water Babies.
It was absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that half of it was live action, and live action was long, drawn out, boring, badly acted, badly written, badly paced. Everything about it was terrible.
Yeah, it was very poor.
The animated sections couldn't save it either, because the animation was the worst animation I've ever seen.
I don't think it's the worst animation I've ever seen, but it's pretty low on the list of movies that we've watched overall in terms of animation quality.
Like, I'm sure I'm forgetting many bad films that we've watched, but like,
One of these days we'll have to do an Animation Pilgrimage recap where we take a look at all of our worst film picks and just like, which is the worst of the worst. And then
that means we have to remember those movies.
I know.
Oh. Ew.
Ew. Anyway.
So yeah, it was a terrible movie. I don't suggest anybody watch it. It only barely made it on.
It's not a very good story that it's based off of either.
No, and then they just
written by a not very great guy.
Yeah. And the movie adaptation just wants to be an Alice in Wonderland and or the Wizard of Oz movie, and doesn't even really
adapt the book well.
Yeah, so it's poor in every single way.
Yeah.
Don't watch it.
But the best of the best, or our favorite movie,
and
here's where I'm going to have my cake and eat it too, goes to Watership Down.
Wait, you gave the drama award to Ringing Bell over Watership Down, and now you're giving the best movie overall to Watership Down.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm having my cake and I'm eating it too.
Okay, well, I gave it to Watership Down because it is, I think, objectively the best film that came out this year.
I agree.
Overall, everything else. And I'm going to be honest, it's not even a movie that I personally enjoy a crazy amount. This is not a movie that I think I'm going to go back and watch again. But I definitely think it's the best movie that came out this year.
That's a strong recommendation.
Yeah. Like, I don't think any elements in it are bad, but it just doesn't...
It doesn't just jive with you.
Exactly. It doesn't fit perfectly with what I want to watch in movies.
So excited to watch Plague Dogs.
I am so upset that we're watching that soon.
By soon, it's still like 3 years away.
Yeah, that's too much. That's too close.
Oh, man. But yeah, it goes to Watership Down. It has left the biggest impact, I think, out of all these other films.
Absolutely. I don't think any of these other movies have left anywhere near as a big of impact on anything.
It's just beautifully done. It's got great story with great characters. The art direction just is wonderful. What else is there to say? It's a beautifully somber and gruesome piece, and it's lasted the test of time, even though there's been several other adaptations done of Watership Down. And this one still stands as like the cream of the crop.
Yeah. Obviously, I have runners-up of movies that I enjoyed more, which are Ringing Bell and Space Battleship Yamato.
What?
I know, weird. So those are those are the movies I personally enjoyed more. But again, I still think Watership Down is the better movie.
Yeah. All right.
I think that's going to be it.
Oh my goodness. And with that, we have wrapped up 1978.
My goodness, that means we only have 1 year left in the 70s.
Yeah.
But before we do that,
and then we get to the radical 80s.
Big hair and hard rock.
Yeah. But
before that, we have one movie to go back and watch. And we're going back.
Oh, God.
Way, way back. Back to the beginning again.
Way, way, way back.
Going back to the middle of World War II. So that'll be fun. See you then.
Oh, boy.